Ever feel completely stuck? Like a problem in your life is a solid brick wall you just can't move? That feeling of being trapped or isolated might not be a problem with your circumstances. It might actually be a problem with your grammar. Standard English forces us to see the world as a collection of isolated, static objects. But if you look at quantum physics or Indigenous sciences, they don't see reality as a room full of separate things. They see it as a continuous, flowing process. Over the next 5 minutes, we are going to use a framework called process language to rewire how you perceive reality, step by step. Grab a pen and a piece of paper right now. Write down a frustrating judgment or an observation that's been bothering you today. We are going to turn this video into an active rewiring tool. Look at the sentence you just wrote. Scan it and cross out any forms of the verb to be. That means any instance of is, am, are, was, or were. Strike them out. You are removing what linguists call the is of identity. When we say something is something else, we create a false sense of absolute, unchangeable truth. Take this sentence, that man is a drunk. The moment you use the word is, the subject gets locked into a dogmatic, permanent state. You leave no room for complexity, and you trap yourself into seeing only one rigid angle. Let's translate that using a constraint called E', which entirely removes to be verbs. The sentence becomes, that man appears drunk to me. Notice what happens. You are no longer projecting an absolute external truth. You are taking ownership of your own subjective perspective. Eliminating the is prevents language from backing you into a corner. Often, the frustrations we feel aren't immovable facts. They are simply grammatical errors confusing a temporary perception with a permanent identity. Step 2. Look at your updated sentence on the paper. Find the rigid nouns, the stings, and try converting them into actions or ing verbs. In 1980, quantum physicist David Bohm developed a linguistic experiment called the rheomode, from the Greek word for flow. He realized that the paradoxes he was seeing in subatomic physics were actually caused by the way we construct our sentences. Bohm pointed out that Western languages force us to invent fake subjects to perform actions. When we say, it is raining, we conjure up a phantom it that does the raining, when in reality, rain is simply an ongoing movement. Our grammar relies on a subject-verb-object structure. Someone does something to something else. This automatically builds a wall that separates the observer from the observed. The rheomode fixes this by making the verb primary. Instead of an observer looks at an object, Bohm suggested we say, observation is going on. Check your paper. Rewrite your sentence so it describes an action taking place, rather than a separate thing performing a task. By verbifying our nouns, we merge the observer with the observed. The distance you feel between yourself and your problem is a linguistic illusion. Read your new sentence aloud. You should notice that the psychological gap between you and the outside world has started to shrink. To understand why this linguistic shift feels accurate to lived experience, we can look at Alfred North Whitehead's process philosophy. For centuries, Western thought struggled to reconcile the gap between mind and body. This problem arises because our language treats them as two separate, static substances. If we label them as distinct bricks, we can never explain how they influence one another. Whitehead suggested a different model. The world is made of actual occasions, momentary events of experience. If both the observer and the environment are just bursts of coordinated movement, the separation between subject and object disappears. Think of a whirlpool. We give it a noun as if it were a static object, but it's composed entirely of moving water. Seeing matter as a series of momentary events brings our language into alignment with the physics of flow. We move from describing a world of inert parts to describing an interdependent organism. Let's bring this all together and finalize the sentence on your paper. Here is a complete transformation, starting with a common, rigid thought. In standard English, you might write, my anxiety is overwhelming my brain. Step 1. We remove the is of identity. The sentence becomes, anxiety overwhelms my brain. Step 2. We convert the rigid nouns into active processes. Anxious feelings are occurring. Step 3. We remove the artificial separation between observer and observed to achieve a non-dual state. The final result: overwhelming is happening right now. It is perfectly fine if the final result sounds unnatural. The ultimate goal here isn't to write conventional grammar. The goal is psychological flexibility. Look closely at your newly written sentence. Notice the total absence of judgment, permanence, and distance. Discarding these static labels shifts your focus toward what David Bohm called the hollow movement, the undivided flux that underlies every form we perceive. You have synchronized your internal description with the dynamic nature of experience. So here is your challenge for the next 24 hours. Attempt to send every single text message without using the word is. This simple constraint will force you to communicate with greater empathy, exactness, and complexity in your daily life. Your perception will continue to shift as you practice this. Keep experimenting, keep flowing.